mindset, but then they believe that you can do the rest of your life on a digital environment except air freight, because people are buying their holidays, insurance, banking, taxis, hotels, everything online. But when it comes to air freight is different.
I am here in Miami at the WebCargo Forum by TIACA, and with me today is Camilo Garcia. He's the Global Vice President Business Development at WebCargo by Freightos. Camilo, great to have you for this conversation.
Reji, thank you very much for inviting me, and great to finish the TIACA event here in Miami with this interview.
Camilo, take us to some of the highlights, some of the trends that you're picking up from the air cargo industry in terms of its digitalization initiatives across different sections of air freight industry. What's your assessment of the digital initiatives by airlines, airports, and other service providers?
I have to say that we are very positive and very impressed by the development that digitization has taken in the last couple of years. If I go back, when I joined WebCargo, it's 3 years ago, and there were conversations where we were actually explaining to our customers the benefits of digitization, why they should embark into this journey. Those conversations have evolved, and those conversations about convincing are pretty much non-existent today. Nowadays, I think as an industry, we've come to the realization of how important digitization is and how relevant it is for every single component of the industry, for every single stakeholder. So in this period of time, we at WebCargo by Freightos have been able to bring along some of the largest airlines in the industry, medium-sized, small airlines, and equally forwarders from different sizes, and helping each player to maximize their opportunity in the market through digital solutions. We see also a very big change in terms of the customer, the user experience, and how that impacts the benefits that each of our customers gets. We always promote that we need to make sure that we promote transparency, that the more transparent that we are, the closer that we get to the customer, the more value we will get as an organization. And that's a lot where our tools are heading to. As a result of our transactions and a relationship with different providers, we're now able to provide our partners with very interesting data, Reji. Data that is allowing them to understand the customer better, and by doing so, serve the customer better in return. And we will keep on enhancing our data capabilities because we believe that there is the source of success for many of the players that are working with us today.
I will come back to the point of data because I think data is becoming the critical factor, the foundation for a lot of the digital initiatives. Camilo, you come from an airline background and you know the typical pain points of having your capacity sold and made available. How that experience of working in airlines has become a kind of major strength for you to convince, to get airlines on board to use your platform.
I look back at my 22 years experience at an airline, and I look at it with huge pride, but also as a source of learning. I saw the pain points, as you said, between the relationship on the airline and the forwarder. And my job actually here nowadays is to bridge those gaps through technology, right? To provide solutions that are going to get the airlines available to display their capacity and their rates to more and more customers every day. And even if we look at what's happening with the market conditions lately, today's market conditions are not the same as 18 months ago. And they're not going to be the same in 6 months. And I think it's there where digitization is going to prove its value the most. Because airlines are, again, needing to display and distribute their capacity to more and more customers in a more efficient way, faster, and reliable environment. And that's what we can do through digitization. So nowadays, our conversations with airlines are all about what else can we do to help them improve utilization, increase their revenues, and with the freight forwarders to reduce the time that it takes for them to place bookings and increase efficiencies from their side too.
Has the job of onboarding or getting an airline customer, has that become easy in the last 18, 20 months?
I wouldn't say it's easy, all right? I wouldn't be giving a very honest answer there. But yes, it's much easier today than what it was before, pretty much because the evidence is out there. We have proven the value that we deliver, and with value, then bringing new customers is going to be faster and faster every time. Nowadays, at WebCargo, we have a range of different types of airlines in our portfolio, and the pipeline for the next year is incredibly rich with all sorts of airlines. We have got large airlines in Asia, but we also have interesting airlines in Africa which we are very advanced with.
In terms of your airline customers, are there any specific region where you think that you still need to make a very deep inroads and to get the airlines on board? Is Asia becoming like a place where airlines a bit of a slow to get on board WebCargo by Freightos?
I think more than at WebCargo by Freightos, the business model in Asia is a bit different or very different if you compare it, for example, to originating in the States and Europe. And that will perhaps mark the speed at which digitization takes place in some of these regions. For example, if I take on the other hand the USA has become the fastest growing region for WebCargo. And we achieve that for the number of airlines that we offer with origins in the States, but also mainly through the number of freight forwarders that work with us in the US market. Earlier this year, we acquired 7L Freight here in the States, the largest rate management system in the US market. And together with 7L, we enjoy now the benefit of working with over 1,200 freight forwarder branches in the States. There are over 1,200 freight forwarder branches that are booking on WebCargo. So we see that in the speed of adoption that we see in this market, and then trying to mirror the maturity that we have achieved in Europe, where we started and where our biggest markets are. So it's a very interesting path that we're seeing in terms of still a very strong growth in Europe, but an exponential growth in the US market.
If I were to ask you, what is that one challenge to get customers on board to use digital platforms where capacity is bought and sold?
Mindset, but then the belief that you can do the rest of your life on a digital environment except air freight, because people are buying their holidays, insurance, banking, taxis, hotels, everything online. But when it comes to air freight is different. It's not different. Of course, it has its complexities, but that's our role here, to make sure that we solve those complexities and provide digital solutions to make air freight, which is a multi-billion part of this economy, to make it as seamless as the rest of the industry is today.
I believe that the future of freight is digital. And you said about the mindset. I always reflect on the three terms. One is the digitization, and digital transformation. And to a great extent, I think a lot of the conversation is centered around the digitization and digitalization. Digital transformation is where you bring in the people element and the mindset change. To that extent, how do you see that mindset fundamentally changing, which would enable much more digitalization, digital adoption?
I think what we're seeing now is that digitization, digital adoption, and transformation is no longer being perceived as an IT project. For me, that's the biggest component. As soon as we take the label of an IT project off the chart, and of course, there's a huge element of IT here, but there's a people element that goes next to it, which is equally important. If we want to have high levels of adoption and transformation, we need to involve people. We believe that what we're doing is transformational. It's not transformational because we're replacing people. It's transformational because we are allowing people to focus on tasks that are going to generate way more value than transactional activities like placing a booking.
When you approach a new customer who does not use digital platforms, are you talking to the IT head? Or are you talking to the head of cargo?
We get into customers' offices from different angles. Our ideal meeting is a combination of different profiles, where we have perhaps the revenue management, we have the IT person, the salesperson, and also the finance person, because at the end, what we're bringing is efficiencies for the airline. So the effect that we are bringing to our customer partners to their bottom line is important. And we want that to be recognized not only by the sales colleagues that are in front of the forwarders, but also from the finance people that are looking at the bottom line every day.
Let me come back to the question of the importance of data. I think data becomes the fundamental foundation for a lot of the digital initiatives. In the air freight industry, a lot of the relationship is based on contract service level agreements, and data becomes really crucial. And even now, we do experience that the data collected at different touch points are not really the best of the data. And then what the data that you get is sometimes becomes completely useless data because you are unable to kind of make any insights of this. So you need the cleaner, much better data. When you look at when data is collected at different touch points, can the data be the point by which you can assign accountability?
The difference with the data that we are generating through digital channels is that it's almost live data. This industry has worked a lot based on data which is 8, 10 weeks old. 6 weeks old is considered an amazing piece of data. 6 weeks old is ancient, antiquated, most likely useless data. With digital transformation, what we're achieving is providing every partner with data as close as possible to being live. And then you can make decisions, trial, and see very, very almost instantly what the effect of your trials are. Revert if it didn't went well, enhance if that's in the direction that you want to go. So it allows us to be a lot more agile in our decision-making processes. Because before, I think organizations were forced perhaps to analyze. At the point when they came to a conclusion, the situation was completely different. And we were providing decisions and solutions for problems that were no longer existing.
Dynamic data, real-time data, to what extent is that data dynamic and to what extent is that data real? You said about as real as possible. Something that I have a conversation when I have conversations, he talks about like even now you have rates coming in as an Excel sheet, you ingest that into. So it is still a lot of things that is still more changes are expected to be taking place in the industry. So how real is the data and how dynamic is the data?
What you described from an Excel perspective, that's how it all started 12 years ago. Excels are disappearing and all our data is now coming from dynamic activity. Fortunately, we work with over 10,000 freight forwarder branches and with over 35 different airlines in over 90 different countries. So when you put everything into the matrix, the amount of data that we generate through the hundreds and thousands of bookings that we do every single day allows us to really provide dynamic live data. Excel's, to be honest, something of the past.
What are the enhancement that I think software has to evolve and has to meet with the demands of the customers? What kind of enhancement do you keep doing for your software, for your product?
Fortunately, we are very lucky to have a great team of engineers working with us that are not only making our current products better, but delivering new products every day. Recently, we announced the launch of our WebCargo Pay service, which is now allowing freight forwarders to pay airlines through WebCargo. So huge component here of differentiation. In the same place where customers are placing the bookings, they are paying to the airline in a single platform. And that is game changing. So we have already rolled this out in the UK, continental Europe, USA, Singapore, India, and South Africa, and very soon in other markets. So that is really allowing us, again, to open markets to customers, to bring customers and providers much closer and allowing them to benefit. Both parties will benefit from this.
Camilo, as I conclude this interview, I want you to reflect on the current air freight market conditions. What are you picking up from conferences like this as you talk to different customers and the people coming into the conference and to the exhibition? What are your reflections of the current air freight market, the global trade, macroeconomic conditions which have an impact on the consumer spend, consumer demand that has an impact, indirect or direct impact on the air freight volumes? What are some of the things that you're picking up from here?
I mean, some of the things that I'm picking and what we're seeing on the platform is there's definitely a trend going down in terms of pricing. That was, I think, expected. Volumes are started to be a bit weaker, however, not, let's say, in the same level of a decrease as rates have. But overall, I think it's also important to concentrate and think that when we compare the current state with 2 years ago, perhaps that's not a fair comparison to what this industry has traditionally been. If we compare where we are today and perhaps where we're going to be in 6 months' time, let's compare 3 years back, 4 years back. We are still better than then. We tend to have short memory, and we like to compare to what happened 12 and 18 months ago when everything was different. But perhaps that was a fictitious reality that I hope for other reasons that we never go back to. But today's environment is again very competitive. Yes, there's going to be excess of capacity. Passengers are again making very good use of their capacity. There's conversions to freighters, but that's where we play a key role. That's where digitalization is going to allow different players to decide where to position their capacity, who to sell their capacity, and at what rate to sell their capacity in the fastest possible way.
Camilo, let's consider for the moment by next year and the year after, a lot of freighter capacity is going to come into the market, and there is macroeconomic condition which is really not favorable to air freight industry. How do you see the air freight industry dealing with volatility in the market, supply demand mismatch? What are some of the things? How are you reflecting on some of these trends?
I think we're going to be back in that imbalance of capacity, but that imbalance is going to be faced with something that was not the same a couple of years ago. It was there, but what I'm talking about is e-commerce. Yes, there's imbalance of capacity. Yes, there was e-commerce 5 years ago, but with the last 3 years during COVID period, I think e-commerce just got multiplied, and that's not going to stop. I think as consumers, as individuals, our purchasing behaviors have kept on evolving, and they are only evolving more towards a digital environment. And with e-commerce, then there's the need to have everything tomorrow. And that's a need that air freight can satisfy. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of that excess and imbalance of capacity is going to be absorbing the increase of e-commerce transactions that we're going to see in the economy.
Camilo, it was a great opportunity to catch up with you, and thank you so much for your time.
Always a pleasure, and looking forward to see you again, Reji.